So I'm going to ask our choir to get in position. Okay. So maybe, Evan, you can grace us with some pretty music. Love this guy. Perfect. Is this better?
Yes.
So sorry. It always helps when you turn the microphone on. I'm okay. So first of all, it's a special Shabbat because we have our choir with us for the first time in a long time, helping us to lead us in services. And this is just the beginning. We're trying to figure out the best place to stay, best place to sit, and all that stuff. That's going to be worked out over time. But I want to welcome you all and just tell you how happy we are that you're here. Our Kol Tikvah choir. Also, we have a special guest lecturer today. Rabbi Deborah Prinz is going to be with us. And if her scholarship wasn't enticing enough, we have a fabulous lunch and even more fabulous dessert. So I would just say, if chocolate's your thing, you're in the right place at the right time. And if you are with us virtually, just because you were thinking, I don't want to get out of my pajamas, but I would just say, get out of your pajamas and come join us at this time. So we are going to begin. Should we start with the morning blessings while we're waiting for our other choir member, and then we can do Hinei Matov? I invite you to turn to page 196 for Elohai Nishama. Elohai Nishama Shenatata Bi Tehorahi. Elohai Nishama Shenatata Bi Tehorahi. Elohai Nishama Shenatata Bi Tehorahi, Tehorahi. One more time. Elohai Nishama Shenatata Bi Tehorahi. Elohai Nishama Shenatata Bi Tehorahi. Elohai Nishama Shenatata Bi Tehorahi, Tehorahi. So actually, I should probably introduce myself to some of you. I may be new. I'm Rabbi Marcia Tilchin. I am the interim rabbi here at Temple Beth Tikvah this year and having a wonderful time getting to know all of you. I want to invite our choir to rise for our first song. This is to welcome everybody. This is a Hine Matov.
Achim gam yachad, hinei ma tov u'manayim. Hinei ma tov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad, 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 hinei ma tov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Ma tov u'manayim, shevet achim, achim gam yachad, hinei ma tov u'manayim, shevet achim, achim gam yachad. Tov ma tov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad, hinei ma tov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad, hinei ma tov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad, Tov. Yesher Koach. I invite you to rise for the morning blessings on page 198. And if it's your custom, and after I say bracha, we say Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan l'sech vivin lahavchin ben yom uven laila. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who opens the eyes of the blind. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who frees the captive. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, zokef kifufim. 200. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who stretches the earth over the waters. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who strengthens our steps. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who clothes the naked. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who gives strength to the weary. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who removes sleep from the eyes and slumber from the eyelids. 202. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who made me in the image of God. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who made me free. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asani Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who girds Israel with strength. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who crowns Israel with splendor. And we all say together on the top of 204, we read together in Hebrew, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. And you may be seated. I invite you to join me reading together in English Elu Divarim on 206. These are the things. These are the things that are limitless, of which a person enjoys the fruit of the world, while the principle remains in the world to come. They are honoring one's father and mother, engaging in deeds of compassion, arriving early for study, morning and evening, dealing graciously with guests, visiting the sick, providing for the wedding couple, accompanying the dead for burial, being devoted in prayer, and making peace among people. But the study of Torah encompasses them all. And that's so powerful right now. There's been a lot of loss in maybe not so much in this community, but in the extended community. And I'm thinking about how much comfort it gives. And I'm really talking to our young people. When we can comfort people in their time of sadness, that's one of the greatest mitzvot that you can do as a Jewish adult, is to help people share some of their sorrow with you. It eases their pain. So this is a very important passage to be reminded of. And we're going to continue with on page 212 with Baruch Shemar. Baruch Shemar v'ha'olam Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo Baruch Oseh v'Reishit Baruch Omer v'Oseh Baruch Gozer u'Mekayem Baruch Merachem Al haaretz, Baruch merachem, Al habriot, Baruch mishalem, Sachar tov l'reav, Baruch chalai, La'ad v'kayam la'netzach, Baruch podeh, u'matzil, Baruch hu, Baruch shemo, Yedidai dai 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 Yedidai dai 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 Yedidai 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 dai dai Uvishvachot uvizimirot negadelcha uneshabechacha unefa'ercha v'nazkir shimcha v'namlichacha malkeinu Eloheinu yachidchei ha'olamim melech meshubach u'mefoar de'ad shemo hagadol Baruch atah Adonai melech mehulal batishvachot. Blessed are you, Adonai, sovereign, who is glorified through praise. We continue on page 214, Mizmor Shir. Mizmor Shir liyom ha-Shabbat Tov lehodot l'Adonai Mizmor Shir liyom ha-Shabbat Ulezamer l'shimcha elyon Lehagid baboker chastecha Ve'munatcha baleilot Ale asur va'ale navel Ale higayon bechinor Mizmor shir liyom ha-Shabbat Tov lehodot l'Adonai Mizmor shir liyom ha-Shabbat Ulezamer l'shimcha elyon Ki simachtani Adonai b'folecha B'masei yadecha aranein Magadlu mahasecha Adonai Me'odam kumachshavotecha Yai dai 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 Yai dai 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 Yai dai 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 Od Yenuvun B'Seva Deshenim V'Rananim Hiyu L'Hagid Ki Asher Adonai Tzuri V'Lo Avlatabo. We continue with Ashrei on page 215. Would any of the youth who are preparing for their B'nai Mitzvah like to come up here and lead with me? It's no pressure, but we can just practice together. Don't be shy. Come on. We'll just stand here. We'll look good together. So we will do the, we'll be one paragraph. You will do it antiphonally. Here we go. It's okay. We're going to practice. It's just good practice. So we're on page 215. Ashrei yoshvei veitecha od yahalalucha selah. Tehillah leDavid, aromimecha Elohai hamelech, va'avracha shimcha leolam va'ed. Gadol Adonai umehulal me'od, ve'ligdulato ein cheker. Hadar kevod hodecha, v'divrei niflaotecha asicha. Zecher av tuvecha yabiu, v'tzidkatecha yiranenu. Tov Adonai lakol, v'rachamav al kol ma'asav. Kevod malchutecha yomeru, ugvuratecha yedaberu. Malchutecha malchut kol olamim, umemshaltecha bechol dor vador. Einechol elecha yisaberu, v'ata noten lahem et ochlam be'ito. Zadik Adonai bechol derachav, v'chasid bechol ma'asav. Ritzon yireyav ya'aseh, v'et shavatam yishma v'yoshiem. Tehillat Adonai yedaber pi, v'varech kol basar shem kodsho leolam va'ed, va'anachnu nevarech yam me'atam yad olam. Hallelujah. Thank you so much, Ari, for doing that. It's good to get practice standing up here. We're going to do Psalm 150. This is a melody I haven't sung here before, but I hope some of you know it. It's a Debbie Friedman song. 218. Hallelujah, 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 shofar, hallelujah, Page 219, we begin our formal Shacharit davening with Nishmat Kol Chai. Nishmat Kol Chai Tivarech et Shimcha Adonai Eloheinu. V'ruach kol basar tifa'er utramem zichracha malkeinu tamid min ha'olam yad olam ata'el ein lanu melech ela ata Elohei rishonim v'achronim. Let the soul of every living thing bless your name, Adonai, our God. We continue on page 220. This is an Ilufinu that I know some of you know because you're in my family, but this might be new to the congregation, but I hope you like it. And Shana, will you do the canon with me? Okay, want to come up? We'll do it once together. Ilufinu male shira, shira kayam. Shonenu rina kamon hamon galav. Ilufinu male shira, shira kayam. Shonenu rina kamon hamon galav. Ilufinu male shira, shira kayam. Shonenu rina kamon hamon galav. Thank you, sweetie. And we continue on page 200. Thank you. On page 222. Ha'el b'tatzumotu zecha, hagadol b'chvot shemecha, hagibor lanetzach v'hanora b'norotecha, hamelech ha'yoshev al kisei ram v'nisav. Shochenad marom v'kadosh shemo. V'chatuv rananu tzadikim b'Adonai la yesharim nava tehila b'fi yesharim titalal uv'divrei tzadikim titbarach uv'elshon chasidim titromam uv'kerev kedoshim titvarach kikadash uv'makalot rivavot amcha beit Yisrael berina yitparshim chamalkeinu bechol dor vador. Yishtabach Shimcha La'ad Malkeinu 223. Ha'el HaMelech HaGadol VaHaKadosh B'Shamayim u'Ba'aretz Ki Lechana Adonai Eloheinu V'Elohei Avotenu V'Imotenu Shir U'Shvacha Hallel V'Zimra Ozu Memshala Netzach Gidula Givura Tehila V'Tiferet Kidusha Malchut Berachot Behodot Me'ata V'ad Olam Baruch Atah Adonai El Melech Gadol Batishpachot El HaHodot Adon HaNiflaot HaBocher B'Shirei Zimra Melech Elchei HaOlamim Yitgadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah V'al Madivra Kirutei v'yamlich Malchutei B'chayei-chon v'yomei-chon v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael B'adalav v'zman kariv v'imru Amen Yehei Shmei Rabbah mevarach Le'olam u'lamei almaya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudesha v'richu le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran bi'alma v'imru amen. I invite you all to rise as our choir helps us come together in prayer with the Baruch Hu. You may be seated. I want to also just introduce a really lovely melody written by my friend Rabbi Aviva Funke. She's she could have been a cantor, but she became a rabbi. But she has a beautiful sort of shacharit nigun that I just wanted to introduce, and it goes. Yai dai 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 da dai, yai dai 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 da dai, yai dai 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 da dai, yai dai dai dai. Simple. Yai dai 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 da dai, yai dai 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 da dai, yai dai 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 da dai, yai dai dai dai. Part B. Yai da da da, yai da 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 da, yai da 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 da, yai da da da, yai da 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 da, yai da da. Yai dai 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 dai. Let's do it again. Yai dai 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 dai. Yai dai 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 dai. Yai dai 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 dai. Yai dai dai dai. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech haolam. 228. Yotzer or uvorei choshech oseh shalom uvorei et hakol. Yai da da, yai da da, yai da 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 da, yai da. All our praise we sing unto you. Yai da da, yai da da, yai da 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 da. All our praise we sing unto you. Anyway, I hope we'll get to do that again. We can weave that in and out of shacharit, but I just wanted to introduce that this morning. Please read with me in English on 228, 4 lines beginning with "Be praised." Be praised, Adonai, our God, for the excellent work of your hands and for the lights you created. May they glorify you. Shine a new light upon Zion, that we all may swiftly merit its radiance. Praised are you, Adonai, creator of heavenly lights. Baruch atah Adonai, Yotzer HaMeorot. And on page 230, we join together in Ahava Rabbah. And if you have your tzitzit, your talit, you can gather your tzitzit. Ahava Rabbah Havtanu Adonai Eloheinu Chem Lagedola Vitera Chamalta Aleinu Ba'avor Avotenu Ve'imotenu Shabbat Chuvecha Avinu Malkeinu Vatilamdem Chukei Chayim Kein Techonenu Lamdenu Rachem Rachem Aleinu Rachem Rachem Aleinu V'tein b'libeinu lehavin U'lahaskil lishmoa Lilmod u'lilamed Lishmor ve'lasot U'lekayem et kol divrei Talmud Toratecha v'yahava V'ha'erenenu b'toratecha V'dabek libeinu b'mitzvotecha V'yached levavenu Li'ahava u'yira et shemecha V'lo nevosh V'lo nikalem V'lo nikashel Le'olam ba'ed ki v'shem Kodshecha Hagadol v'hanora b'hatachnu Nagila nismecha b'shuatecha V'havienu l'shalom me'arba kanfot ha'aretz V'tolichenu kol memiyut le'artzenu Ki el poel Yeshuotata Uvanu v'charta v'lashon v'keiravtanu l'shimcha hagadol Sela be'emet lehodot lecha U'liachedcha b'yava Baruch atah Adonai habocher b'yamo Yisrael b'yava. So I invite you to take a deep breath. If you feel so moved to cover your eyes, we say Shema together. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. We join together with the Ahavta on 234. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavecha hayom al levavecha Vishinantam levanecha vidibarta bam bishivtecha beveitecha uvelechtecha vaderech uveshochbecha uvekumecha ukshartam liot al yadecha vehayuletotafot beinenecha Uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha. Turn the page to 236 and read with me in English, middle of the page. Adonai said to Moses as follows, "Speak to the Israelite people and instruct them to make for themselves fringes on the corners of their garments throughout the ages. Let them attach a cord of blue to the fringe at each corner. That shall be your fringe. Look at it and recall all the commandments of Adonai and observe them, so that you do not follow your heart and your eyes in your lustful urge." And we continue in the Hebrew. Leman tizkeru va'avitem et kol mitzvotai v'item kedoshim le'elohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hodseiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem le'elohim ani Adonai Elohechem emet. We continue on page 238. Emet v'yatzi v'yahu v'chavi v'nora v'yadir v'tov v'yafed avarzel leinu li'olam ba'ed. Emet Elohei olam malkeinu tzur Yaakov magen yishenu l'dor v'ador ukayam u'shmo chayam v'chiso nachon u'malchuto v'emunato la'ad kayamet u'devarav chayim v'kayamim ne'emanim v'nechemadim la'ad u'me'olamim mimitzrayim ge'altanu Adonai Eloheinu mi'beit avadim Piritanu. We read together at the bottom of the page, just in this week's Parsha. From Egypt you redeemed us, freeing us from bondage. For that your beloved sang praise, exalting you. Your dear ones offered hymns, songs, praise, blessing, and thanksgiving to you as sovereign, the living and enduring God. High and exalted, great and awesome, God ever humbles the proud, raises the lowly, frees the imprisoned, redeems the afflicted, helps the oppressed, answering our people when we cry out. Praise to God Most High. Blessed is God and deserving of blessing. In great joy, Moses, Miriam, and Israel responded with song to you, all of them proclaiming. And please join me on 240. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar ba'kodesh, norat tehilot osefele. Shira chadasha shibechu geulim lishimcha al sfatayam yachad kulam hodu vimlichu ve'amru Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed. Please rise. Tzur Yisrael, Kuma bi'ezrat Yisrael, ufdei chinumecha, Yehuda ve'Yisrael. Go aleinu, Adonai tzvaot shemo, Kedosh Yisrael, Baruch atah Adonai, Gal Yisrael. We are on page 242. We'll do this meditation, Adonai Savatai Tiftach, and then begin the Amidah together through Kedusha and complete our prayers privately. Moshiv HaRuach, Umorid HaGashem, Mechakel Chayim Bechesed, Mechayei Meitim Berachamim Rabim, Shomech Noflim Verofech Olim, Umatir Osurim, Umekayem Emunato Lishenei Afar, Michamocha Bal Gevurot, Umidol Melach, Melech Meimid Umechayem, Umashiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman ata l'hachayot meitim, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayei hameitim. Nekadesh et shimcha ba'olam, Keshem shemakdishim oto b'shmei maron, Kakatuv al yad nevi'echa, V'karazeh el zeh v'yamar, Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzevaot, Melech haaretz, Kivodo. Adir, Adirenu, Adonai, Adonenu Adir, Shimcha b'chol haaretz, Baruch kevod Adonai bimkomo. Echad Eloheinu, Hu Avinu, Hu Malkeinu, Hu Moshienu, V'hu Yashmienu, B'rachamav le'nei kol chai. Ani Adonai Elohechem, Yimloch Adonai le'olam, Elohai Tzion, Ledor v'ador. Hallelujah. Ledor vador nagid godlecha, u'netzach netzachim kedushatecha nakdish, v'shivchacha Eloheinu, mipinu lo yamush leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai, Ael HaKadosh. Beautiful. We continue now with our Torah service. Actually, we can all rise for Ein Kamocha on page 362. Ein Kamocha va'Elohim Adonai v'ein k'ma'asecha malchutecha malchut kol ha'amim u'memshaltecha b'chol dor v'dor. Adonai melech, Adonai malach, Adonai imoch le'olam ad. Adonai oz le'amo yitein, Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom. Av harachamim heitiv avirtzoncha et Zion. Tivnei chomot Yerushalayim. Tivnei chomot Yerushalayim. Tivecha levad batachnu melech el ram benisa adon olamim. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai echad. Echad Eloheinu Gadol Adonenu Kadosh Shemo. Gadolu Adonai iti Unaromima Shemo Yachtav Lech Matov hine matov manayim Shevet achim gam yachad Hine matov umanayim 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 Shevet achim achim gam yachad Hine matov umanayim Shevet achim achim gam yachad Hine matov umanayim Shevet achim gam yachad Hine matov umanayim Shevet achim gam yachad Hine matov umanayim Shevet achim gam yachad matov. Yay! That was so great. Sorry. You may be seated. Okay. Welcome, everybody. Again, those of you who came in since we started. We opened our beautiful service with that wonderful Hinei Matov, and I'm so glad we got to have a reprise. Now, I just wanted to share, as I do, we're not going to linger long on the Torah today. I mean, in terms of my explaining the Parsha, because we have a wonderful speaker after lunch, and we don't want to tarry with that. But I do want to just highlight a few interesting things about this Parsha, which you may be new to you. So, by the way, I was smart enough.
I got both of your Chumashim. So if you're in the one that's the more modern edition, I encourage you to turn to Va'era begins on page 382. If you were in the older version of the Plout, Va'era begins on 420. So I'm finally getting with the program here. And just a few things that I wanted to share. First of all, this parsha, which begins, it's Exodus chapter 6, verse 2 is how this begins, is, if you read it, almost like the cliff notes of what happened in last week's parsha. So, there's nothing that is stated at the beginning of this parsha that we didn't get in Shemot. Let me, I'll do a quick reading. God spoke to Moses and said to him, I am the Eternal, Ani Adonai. We already knew that. He said it last week. I appeared to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob as El Shaddai. I did not make myself known to them by the name Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh. I also established my covenant with them, he told Moses last week at the bush, to give them the land of Canaan, the land which they lived in as sojourners. I have now heard the moaning of the Israelites, because the Egyptians are holding them in bondage, and I have remembered my covenant, which he said last week. Very good. Say, therefore, to the Israelite people, I am the Eternal. I will free you from the labors of the Egyptians and deliver you from their bondage. I will redeem you with an outstretched arm and through extraordinary chastisements. This conversation happened last week. God was saying to Moses, here's what you're going to do. You're going to do this. You're going to say this. Moses is like, I can't go. I can't go. He's like, yes, you can. Okay. And I will take you to be my people, and I will be your God, and you shall know that I, the Eternal, am your God who freed you from the labors of the Egyptians. That's a little new, but it's the same idea. I will bring you to the land I swore to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and I will give it to you as a possession, I, the Eternal. And then when Moses told this to the Israelites, they would not listen to Moses because their spirits were crushed by cruel bondage. So, suddenly that happened, and then Moses went and told the Israelites. Okay, and so that's kind of like an interesting thing, that it was sort of like almost in the Jonah story. You know how Jonah says, I will not go tell the people in Nineveh that God's going to destroy them. He runs away. Finally, when God says, you got to go to Nineveh, you got to do this. We know the story. And literally Jonah walks in like this. Nineveh's going to be destroyed in a week. And then he walks out or whatever. And they all change, right? But this time it didn't work for Moses. He told them and they wouldn't listen. But then the Eternal spoke to Moses saying, go and tell Pharaoh to let the Israelites depart from this land. But Moses appealed to the Eternal saying, this is the verse I want to just point out, one of two things. The Israelites will not listen to me. How should they heed me who gets tongue-tied? In Hebrew it says, Hein b'nei Yisrael lo sham'u elai, ve'ech yishma'eni Pharaoh, ve'ani aral sefatayim. That we haven't heard before. I have a circumcised tongue. What does that mean? I have a circumcised tongue. Frankly, aral sefatayim, nobody really understands what that means. How do the rabbis know? Because if you go back to last week's parsha, when Moses and God are fighting at the bush, and God says to Moses, Moses says in chapter 4, verse 10, Moses says, please, God, I've never been good with words, either in times past or now that you have spoken to your servant. And so what he's saying is, and the Hebrew here is, Lo ish devarim anochi. So that's how the rabbis figured it out. Aral sifatayim, circumcised tongue, must mean lo ish devarim anochi. I'm not good with words. I get tongue-tied. Later it became, I stutter. There were a lot of midrashim about what that means. But that's just a really interesting, when there's a very hard phrase in the Torah that uses poetry or metaphor like a circumcised tongue, like you have to do some detective work within the Torah to figure that out. That's one thing I want to point out to you. The other thing you should be asking yourself is, why on earth, in what we're going to read today, do we go into, well, we're actually not going to read it today because we're going to read up to there. If you turn back to page 383 or on page 421 in the other plout, it says, all of a sudden, Moses and Aaron are going to go speak to Pharaoh. That's good. I understand that. And suddenly we get this weird thing. B'nai Ruvain,
The following are the heads of the respective clans. The son of Reuben, Israel's firstborn, Enoch and Palu, Chetzron and Carmi. Those are the families of Reuben. The sons of Shimon, Yemuel, Yamin, Ochad, Yachin, Zohar, Shaul, and the son of the Canaanite woman, who are all the families of Shimon. And then there are the names of Levi's sons by their lineage. I'm going to explain. There is a therefore here. Because the rabbis go, what is this doing here? And it stops at Levi. Who are the first four sons? Reuben, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda. And by the way, when you're studying Talmud, one of the things that happens when they have to make up names for people, it's Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda. Reuven, Shimon, because those are the four first sons of Jacob. So anyway, we hear about Reuben, they get no fanfare. We hear about Shimon, no fanfare. Listen to this. Verse 16. These are the names of Levi's sons by their lineage. Who are they? Gershon, Kohat, Merari. The span of Levi's life was 137 years. We don't know how long any of the other brothers live. The sons of Gershon are Livni and Shimei by their families. The sons of Kohat, Amram, Izhar, Chevron, and Uziel. The span of Kohat's life was 133 years. The sons of Merari, Mali, Mushi. These are the families of the Levites by lineage. And then we want to hear more about Amram. Why? Because ultimately Amram is the father of Aaron and Moses. What's the purpose of this here? I'm so glad you asked. It is to make sure that we understand that at this moment, the tribe of Levi is getting excised from the 12 tribes. Remember, they came down with everybody else at the end of Genesis. It was the same thing, 12 tribes, no different, right? In this moment, that's where the Bible writers said, no more. Levi is not going to be part of the regular 12. They're going to come out. We're giving them a special lineage. We're honoring them. And that is the foundation of the priesthood, all of which will be developed in the book of Leviticus. But it has to happen here. Why? Because Moses and Aaron are going to be the stars of this Torah for the rest of the Torah. And we have to understand, why would we care? We care, and this is why. This is the material they're giving us to help us to care. Okay, and then what we're not going to read today, but I think you'll find very exciting, are the first 6 plagues, and you'll have to come back next year when we read the second triennial of this. But without further ado, I'd like to invite our Gabbaim up to help us with the Torah service. Yes. Okay, that's fine. Well, so you'll follow along for me for the second? Okay. I can't decide what book to use, you guys. I have too many books. Hold on.
Yamdu, Aliyah HaRishon, Yeshaya Rachmiel ben David, Steve Sherman, and Fega Esther Bat Yechiel Fran Sherman. Reading Mark Filowitz.
And Mark is reading. And here it's right here, you guys. Yep. Fran, do you want to touch with your tallies right here, honey?
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Barach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amim V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. B'yidaber Elohim El Moshe v'yomer Elav Ani Adonai Ve'ra El Avraham El Yitzhak El Yaakov Be'el Shaddai Umei Adonai Lo Nodati Lachem V'gam Hakamoti Et Buriti Ita Latet Lachem Et Haaretz Canaan Et Haaretz Megurihem Asher Garuva V'gam ani shamati Et Na'achat B'nei Yisrael Asher Mitzrayim Me'avdi Otam Ve'ezukor El Bariti.
There you go, Fran. Touch here. Perfect. Steve.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam notam b'tocheinu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Yishar kol chachem.
Yamdu, Yamdu, Aliyah Sheni, Feivel ben Shlomo, Felix Livitz, and Gitman Gedalia ben Chaim, Greg Weitzman. And reading will be Rabbi Tilshin.
Trying to stand there. Can Shandel follow along for me in the Torah? Shandel, will you just follow along? I'll chant. You can leave your book on the table. Is it 6 through 9? Okay. Right here. Okay, so you're going to follow with the yad. No,
Baruch hu et Adonai hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai HaMbarach
Le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai hamvarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bacha banu mikol hamim, v'natan lanu et torto. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Amen. Lachein. Emor livnei Yisrael. Ani Adonai. V'hotzeti etchem. Mitachat sivlot Mitzrayim. V'hitzalti etchem. Me'avodatam. V'galti etchem. Bizro anetuyah. Uvi shifatim gedolim. V'lakachti etchem li la'am. V'hayita lachem le'elohim. Vidatem ki ani Adonai Elohechem. Hamotzi etchem mitachat sivlot Mitzrayim. V'heveti etchem el haaretz asher nasati et yadi. Latet ota la'Avraham li'Yitzchak u'Yaakov v'natati ota lachem morasha ani Adonai vayidaber Moshe kein al bnei Yisrael v'lo sham'u el Moshe miksor ruach me'avodah kasha.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tocheinu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
And for the third Aliyah, Yamdu, Yamdu, Bracha Batzvi HaKohen V'Menucha, Barbara Levine, and Seidel Rivka Batshmul Leah Lila Pesner, and I will read the third.
And
if you will
just
help me out.
Yes, Shana will help you out. And I just want to point out something. This is actually so important. It's a must highlight. There's a lot of when we talk about the Passover story, everything's in almost in numbers of 4. 4 is a symbolic number. There are 4 questions. There are 4 cups of wine. There are 4 sons. 4, 4, 4. And one of the midrashic basis for the 4 is actually what I just chanted. If you look on page 382, verse 6, it's the 4 verbs right here. These are the promises. It's the 4 promises God's going to make. Say therefore to the Israelite people, I am the eternal. So the first is v'hotzeti etchem mitachat sivlot Mitzrayim. I'm going to take you out from all your suffering, from all right. V'hitzalti. So hotzeti hitzalti, that's number 2, etchem me'avodatam, v'ga'alti, and I will redeem you, bizroa netuyah, with a strong hand and an outstretched arm, v'lakachti, and I will take you to be my people, and I will be your God. So those, and then the one that's the iffy one is in the next verse, in verse 8, Veheveti. That's the cup of Elijah, and I will bring you. Not so clear. Did they get there right away? No, they didn't. He did everything else. He did what he said. He hotzetid, and he hitzaltid, and he ga'altid, and he did all that, but he didn't do that final thing, at least during the Torah. So that cup of Elijah is sort of that the one hanging in the balance. But I just wanted to point that out, that comes right from here. Okay.
Baruch et Adonai Hambarach.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bakar banu mikol hamim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. V'yidaber Adonai el Moshe Lemor, Bo diber el Paro, Melech Mitzrayim, V'yishlach et b'nei Yisrael me'artzo. V'yidaber Moshe lifnei Adonai Lemor, Chen b'nei Yisrael lo shamu elei, V'echa v'yishme'echa, Paro v'ani ara sifatayim. V'yidaber Adonai el Moshe v'el Aharon v'yatzem v'el b'nei Yisrael el Paro melech Mitzrayim l'hodot et b'nei Yisrael me'eretz Mitzrayim.
Oh, great.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tokeinu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Yasher koach to our honorees, to those who had aliyot. Mazel tov. Thank you, Sheena. I know. So I was telling you. Yes. We just want to say a prayer for all those who are ailing physically, emotionally, people we know that are struggling with many other, so many different things. We want to just honor them. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read the names of the people in our community who are on our list, and then I'm going to go around the room and give everybody a chance to add names that aren't on. And also, I'm inviting people who are joining us on Zoom this morning. Welcome. First, so glad you're here. And if you want to add people to our Mishaberach list, please do. We're thinking about Alan Boyarsky and Andrea Goldberg, Anita Muchnikoff, Barbara Bevins, Barbara Rothbart, Dale Scully, David Trackman, Ed Schechter, Elaine Solomon, Evelyn Ma, Florence Nagler, Jerry Feldman, Henry Cohen, Janet Capps, Janet White, Jerry Harmon, Karen Guth, Marilyn Gwastoff, Marlene Pfaff, Michael Hennig, Mindy Gladstein, Peter Gwastoff, Rose Kaufman, Sheldon Weisbach, Shirley Hoffman, Shirley Zaidman, Zach Pesner. I'm also thinking about David Weiderman and Jonathan Cohen and Arlene Tilchin. Are there other people that we want to add? Thank you. Thank you. Please join me as we sing together. Ishe be'roth avot
Refuah Shlema Lekulam. For all those who needed our prayers, we couldn't mention them, but we send our healing wishes their way. I want to invite Steve Velasco up to come do Hagbah. I invite you, please rise. Our Torah is lifted. And then, I know, that's the one I remember. I was freaked out last time. That's why you were, Vizot HaTorah Asher Sham Moshe Livnei Bnei Yisrael Al Pi Adonai B'yad Moshe. What do you play? Okay. Al Shosha Devarim. I finally figured it out. Al Shosha Devarim. Al Shosha Devarim. Ha'olam obey. So now, our choir, as we continue to stand, we're going to be singing a new Eitz Chaim He that we worked on as a group. And so I'm going to ask you to parade around. Okay. Oh, yes. And so why don't you mention that?
The Torah that we use today is very unique. This is our kosher Holocaust Torah from Solzhenitsyn. This is the one saved from World War II that Chaim got from the Memorial Scrolls Trust in London. So it's a very, very special Torah.
By the way, we used it a couple weeks ago, and I'd never seen Hebrew calligraphy like this. I mean, it's really it's unique, and I mean, in probably so many ways. So thank you for sharing that. So this is so as Steve walks around with the Torah, we're going to debut our Eitz Chaim here. Eitz Chaim. I think we leave it open for Aleinu, Steve. We continue with Aleinu on page 500 and something. Aleinu l'shabeach Adon Hakol, v'tein gedula li'yotzer b'reshit, shelo asanu kigoyei haratzon, v'lo samanu k'mishpachot hadama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, v'gor aleinu k'cho hamonam, v'anachnu korim, u'nishachavim u'modim, l'fnei melech, b'nei hamalchim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. 588. Shehu noteh shamayim v'yosei haaretz, Moshe v'yimkaru kashamayim v'imos, u'shlei Shlina tuzo, Shlina tuzo, Begove Meromim. Hu Eloheinu Eino, Emet Malkeinu Efesu Lato, Kakatu B'Torato, V'yadata Hayom, V'yadata Hayom V'hashemota Elevavecha, Ki Adonai Hu Elohim, B'shamayim Imal, V'yal ha'aretz, V'yal ha'aretz, Mitachat Einod, Einod. Let all who dwell on earth acknowledge that to you every knee must bend and every tongue swear loyalty. Before you, Adonai, our God, let them pay homage. Let them give glory to your honored name. Let all accept the yoke of your reign, that you may rule over us soon and forever, for sovereignty is yours, and to all eternity you will reign in glory. As it's written in your Torah, Adonai will reign forever and ever. V'ne'emar, v'haya Adonai, l'melech al kol haaretz, v'yom hahu, yeh Adonai echad, u'shemo, u'shemo, u'shemo You may be seated. I want to just acknowledge, before I read the Yort sites for the congregation, I know there's a number of people in a period of recent loss. We're thinking of Sarah DeLand and the fact that she's, so newly mourning her father, Bob Messy, and hope that she will be able to be joining us soon. And we just, continue to send our condolences to the family. Not totally connected to the congregation, but Cynthia Cohen, who is the mother-in-law of Ron Siegel and brother to Shelley Siegel, passed away 2 days ago, and her funeral will be on Monday. And the family was here last night with us, which was very special that they came to be with us at this time. And are there other people who are in their week of Shiva or in their Shaloshim? Anybody here in a period of Shaloshim? Okay, let me read these Yort sites, and then if you have a Yort site, tell us your mother's name. Susan Brody, Sylvia Weissman, Frida Block, Benny Brown, Harold Lowenstein, Noah Schultz, Sylvia Abraham, Selma Dernbach, Gary Schaefer, Milton Schaefer, Reva Swire, Rose Orlikoff, Sandy Meyer, Amy Sloan, Irving Rubin, Irving Lair, Carl Henderson, Yafa Kokos, Robert Jacobs, Emil Edelman, Howard Miller, Richard Vaccarino, Albert Dernbach, Alfred Rosenberg, Clara Lifshitz, Irving Shaw, Dusha Hentel, and Tom Green. Are there other Yort sites to acknowledge? Aiden, anybody online? Okay. So with our loved ones in mind, I invite those of you who are reciting Kaddish to stand, and Kaddish is found on page 598. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah b'alma divra kirute v'amlich malchute b'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chaye dechol beit Yisrael ba'agala u'vizman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabba mevarach le'alam u'le'almei almaya yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shemei dekudesha barichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran bi'alma v'imru amen. Yehi Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya, V'chaim Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael V'imru Amen. Oseh Shalom Bimromav, Hu Ya'aseh Shalom, Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael V'imru Amen. Tehi Zichram Baruch, may the memories of your loved ones endure for you as a great blessing. Be seated. We have a few announcements. The first thing I want to say, just a couple things before I invite one of our religious practices leaders up to fill us in on what's going on. Rabbi Miriam Van Ralt has worked very hard to make this morning so special for us. We have a gorgeous luncheon, a wonderful speaker, an even better dessert. I hope that you're all planning on staying. And also, when you see Miriam, just let her know how grateful you are for the time and effort she put into this this beautiful afternoon. I want to thank Evan for his wonderful piano playing. This is the first time Evan and I have really sort of like done a service together by ourselves, and it was so lovely. It's such a privilege to work with you. And thank you to our 7 singers in Kol Tikvah. It's so beautiful to have you here, and you sounded gorgeous. And may this be, as I said, the harbinger of wonderful things to come. And to Mark and to everybody who helped with religious practices, thank you today. As always, our stunning teenage tech team. Last night we marked our January birthdays, and when Aiden, who we rely on so heavily, came out and said, I turned 16 last week. I'm like, you what? You turned 16? No way. So happy birthday again to Aiden, and thank you for all that you do to help our services get out there and be so well heard and available to our friends, both watching us on YouTube and also on Zoom. And a special Shabbat Shalom to everybody in the Zoom aggregation. Your beloved Cantor Gabby will be back next week. And Mark, are you giving announcements? Okay, please listen. Gabby and I are starting a Torah reading, learn how to read Torah class this Tuesday. You do not want to miss it. It's going to be a great class. And we, as you can see, we want to sort of, we'd like to have 3 different people up here every week to be able to lead and to practice and to work. And our aliyot are manageable enough that this is a perfect opportunity for anyone who's thinking of learning. We'll see you Tuesday at 7. And this is And Monday night, we have Daniel's history class, which has been ongoing. We're not even done with our first 10 weeks, but it's going to go longer because he's really sort of doing a dissection of Jewish history that's fantastic. He's such a scholar. And if you missed previous classes, they're available on the collaborative website, and we can also put them actually on the TBT website, which is probably something we should do. And we have we've been announcing that you're coming. Kol Tikvah will be back with us on the 3rd Shabbos in February. I believe it's the 18th. So you don't want to miss them. But if you want to join our choir, our next rehearsal is the first Saturday in February. First and third Saturdays we rehearse in the afternoon, just not today because we have a speaker. And we have a show debuting in about a month, the Hilltop Players, right on this bima. It's going to be adorable. We have 14 young people in this production, and I think you'll be really happy you saw it. They're really cute, and we would love to have you. You can buy, yes. Oh, I was going to say, you can buy tickets, general seating, you can buy reserve seating, which will help us a little more, or you can become a Hilltop sponsor, which, I know you're not going to believe this, gets you 2 VIP seats to not only this Hilltop production, but the one we're doing again in the summer, I know, and invitation to the reception. So if you're able to make a donation of $180 and be a Hilltop sponsor, we would be most grateful. Last thing, I also just want to say to our friends on Zoom and our virtual friends, is that, we want to make sure that our communications with you are excellent as they have been, and we are looking for people to sponsor our virtual programming. So if you want to honor somebody you love with a yahrzeit, or a yahrzeit of someone you love, we would love to be able to say, and this week's Zoom and virtual sponsoring is brought to you by the wonderful family in honor of their even more wonderful so-and-so, or to celebrate a birthday or whatever. So I'm just putting that out there. And did I leave any stone unturned, Terry?
Yeah, and it's like a great thing. So I just want to say. And so with that, we are going to turn to page 625. I hope this brings back some nice memories for you. And the choir is going to lead us in the granddaddy tune of them all for Adon Olam. Here we go. Adon Olam asher malach b'terem kol yitzir nivra li'ein nasa b'chefso kol azai melech shemo nikra v'yacharei kichut hakol levado yimot nora v'hu haya v'hu hoveh v'hu yiyeh b'tivara v'hu echad v'yein sheni lehavshir lo lehavbiro v'li rishit v'li tachshit v'lo ha'oz v'hamishra v'hu eli v'chai go'ali v'tzorchem li v'yetzara v'hu nisi u'lanosli menat kosi v'yom ekra v'yado afkid ruchi v'yeti sham v'ya'ira v'im ruchi k'v'yati Adonai li v'lo ira. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Please join us in the social hall for Kiddush and Motzi and a wonderful Shabbat Kiddush luncheon. And again, bye, everybody. Thank you for joining us on Zoom.
so full, and I didn't even eat lunch. I know, it's like chocolate haze, but it's worth it. And I'm here to tell you from the Weight Watchers perspective that anything eaten for religious purposes has no calories or points. So you're all home free today. I'm going to be at the Orange Center tomorrow if you want to check in, or not. You don't want to check in. But this has been something I have wanted to do since the last time Rabbi Prince was here. We just had so much fun, and I'm a fun person about, no, that didn't come out right. Thanks, Greg. I love fun, and I love to plan parties, and I love to see people having a good time. So I knew that this would be a fun day, and it was my honor and excitement to invite Rabbi Prince to rejoin us and see us post-COVID, which finally we were able to do. And so I have this 20-minute introduction that I'm going to skip, but Aiden and Miles are trying to hook up the audio visuals so that we can enjoy a PowerPoint presentation so you have something to look at other than us. And so I'll share a little bit about our guest speaker. As you probably know, she is the amazing author of On the Chocolate Trail. People don't know that we as Jews have a direct connection with chocolate, but what a surprise. But since she was here last time, this book came out, The Boston Chocolate Party, which is a lighter version of the history of chocolate, perhaps for your children or grandchildren, or for you. It's totally okay. On the Chocolate Trail is actually in its second edition now, so it's been very popular. She travels around the world, has been a guest speaker in so many different places, and every time she lectures in person or virtually, she gets a very welcome response. And she was awarded a Starkov Fellowship and a Director's Fellowship from the American Jewish Archives, as well as a Gilder Lehrman Fellowship from the Rockefeller Library to pursue the research for a chocolate book. She has an interest in chocolate. You've researched, how do you look like you do when you research chocolate? It's age-old. Well, it's like Guy Fieri. His producers have to pull him away from the places he visits. She's held a number of leadership positions in the National Regional Reform Movement, served as the Central Conference of American Rabbis, as Director of Program and Member Services, and the Director of the Joint Commission on Rabbinic Mentoring. I could use your help. In addition, she's also mentored rabbinical students through the Meyerson program at HUC, Hebrew Union College, and just so much more. You can read about her on her website. She has served as the rabbi. She's the Rabbi Emerita of Temple Adat Shalom in San Diego County, where she was its senior rabbi for almost 20 years. Does that mean there was chocolate at every oneg? Probably so. But she's been involved in rabbinical work and congregational work for over 30 years. And we are so happy to welcome you and your amazing husband, Mark. Mark, there you are, yay. We're so glad you're both here. Most importantly, she is grandma to Amiel Pele, Ziv, Lior, and Yona. I'm sure there are pictures if you want to see them. So welcome to TBT again. We are excited you are here.
Miriam, I'll take that microphone. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Miriam, for that great introduction. Rabbi and Rabbi, thank you so much for the invitation to be here. Congregation, thank you for inviting me. Judy, kol hakavod, kudos on another amazing chocolate competition and array of all of you. What an array of delicious chocolate goodies you have provided, everybody. I suppose you'll have your competition and we'll know who wins a little bit later on. We are waiting for slides to come up, but in the meantime, let me just ask you, oh, I don't have to ask you this question. Do you like chocolate? I already know the answer to that question. If you enjoyed some chocolate during the pandemic, especially the first part of the pandemic, and you turned to it for comfort, raise your hand. Was there a specific type of chocolate that you were enjoying at that point in time? You could just share. Yes.
I started having a cup of cocoa in the evening.
Well, that ties into our theme for today, in a way, because the Boston Chocolate Party is this children's book, which just came out in October, is about chocolate making in the colonial period in North America, where chocolate was just a beverage. And Sephardim in the chocolate business, Sephardi Jews in the chocolate business in the colonial period in North America. And the coincidence of the last night of Hanukkah falling on the night of the Boston Tea Party in 1773. This is my last copy today of this book, so if you would like to have it afterwards, I'd be happy to sign it and sell it to you. Otherwise, it's at Amazon. But anyway, chocolate was a beverage and only a drink. People got drunk on their chocolate for a very long time before it was an edible. And I don't mean by that it had cannabis in it. I just mean it was an edible food. You are a good audience. You're all chocolated up. This is great. All right. So anybody else who was comforted by chocolate during the pandemic? Nobody? Yes, I saw. Oh, yes. Oh, good. Your homemade ones or you? Okay, fine. Yes, please.
The Sprouts dark chocolate almond clusters were just a delight.
Oh, good. Anybody on this side of the room comforted by chocolate during the beginning of the? Nobody. Oh, yes, please. What was it? What was it specifically? Okay, you mean the Okay, got it. Anybody in this middle section? Oh, yes, please. Ooh. Oh, is it like the size of an orange, like the British, I forget which company makes that. Yes. Right, and then you think you're getting your citrus as well as your chocolate, your vitamin C. Good. Anybody? Well, let's give this middle. Yes, please, Fran. What did you grow up with specifically as you were a? Oh, okay. Part of chocolate cakes. Great. What about this anybody in this area? You haven't been represented yet. Okay. It was an ice cream comfort. Okay, great. Okay. Yeah, good. I can relate to that too. Okay, so, we got it up just in time. Perfect. Can you see it though? Okay, great. Wonderful. Thank you so much back there, you guys. That was great. Perfect timing. So, you've had a chocolate party. You've had probably many of them over the years. And I thought today's topic, we should focus on chocolate parties since the most recent book is The Boston Chocolate Party. So I'd like to tell you a little bit about the book and the story, and then give you some context for Boston chocolate parties in the colonial period. So we're going to sort of drill down into some of the Jewish pieces of the story, which you heard about several years ago. I'm not going to repeat that part. And then give you some of the colonial American, like, what did Alexander Hamilton drink? Question. I'm sure a question that you struggled with, kept you awake at night. You know, you've been wondering about. You've probably asked your rabbis. You know, Rabbi, what did Alexander Hamilton drink? Anyway, as you may recall, chocolate is an immigrant food. It's a migrant food. It has moved around the world it's maybe indigenous to Central South America. Now it's grown in West Africa, some parts of Indonesia, some parts of Vietnam, even a little segment of Hawaii. Chocolate is a migrant food. You have to sort it. It can only grow 20 degrees north of the equator, 20 degrees south of the equator. And these early North American stories are also, and the early Jewish stories of chocolate are also stories of immigrants or migrants or people who had to move from one place to another, particularly Sephardim, some Ashkenazim, but particularly Sephardim, Jews descended from Spain, Jews who were exiled from Spain, Jews who chose to leave Spain, Jews who might have converted to Christianity or Catholicism, but maintained some sort of connection to Judaism, or at least maintained a connection to their Jewish relatives through business. So in the colonial period in North America, we have the Gomez family in New York and the Lopez family in Rhode Island. We'll get to those stories in just a minute. But so here you've seen the book, The Boston Chocolate Party, and I've told you a little bit about it. It's also the story of friendship between one little boy who lives in Newport and his friend who had to move out of Newport, Rhode Island, because his mom couldn't afford to stay in Newport. She went to Boston to try to find work. Isaac and Joshua are friends for a long time, but they're missing each other. And Joshua helps Isaac's mother, the impoverished child's mother, figure out how to earn a living by creating a chocolate house in Boston. So this child teaches the other child and family how to make chocolate in the colonial period way, and you'll learn more about that in a few minutes. There's a shot from the book where they're celebrating Hanukkah using a Sephardi-style Chanukiah, an oil-burning Chanukiah. They're looking out the window, they're celebrating Hanukkah, and the Boston Tea Party is happening at the same time. One parent wrote to us after the book came out saying, I enjoyed sharing this book with my children because it's about kindness, helping those in need, Joshua helping Isaac, and families that look different from ours, Sephardim, not Ashkenazim, I don't know, are there any Sephardim in the room? Any folks descended from Sephardim? Okay, so that's interesting. We're kind of an Ashkenazi-focused Jewish community, and we sometimes forget that there are Jews from other parts of the world. But in any case, the parent wrote, I like that it is about a family that looks different from ours, and she continues, but what really spoke to me now, when there is so much anti-Semitism, is that this book shows American Jews were in this country from the very beginning, and that is absolutely true. It means we played a role, we belong, and I want my boys to know that. So we were so delighted to hear her take on the story, because we had lots of levels that we were dealing with in telling the story, and that she honed in on this unfortunate reality of anti-Semitism, but the reality of Jewish existence in America since the beginning is great. You've seen this, so I'm not going to say anything about that. There was a lot of chocolate in the colonial period in North America. How many of you have actually seen cocoa grow in its indigenous where were you? Where did you? In Ecuador. Cool. And did you see it made also? No, we just were at a farm. Yeah. Yep. Right. So these are dried pods that you're seeing in this slide, and you're seeing the seeds inside. So when they grow in situ, when they grow in the place of origin, the pods are actually multiple colors. They could be yellow, they could be green. They're amazing, they're beautiful. And what were you asking? Sorry, or saying? So a pod is about the size of a small football, maybe about this big. It depends. It's big, but it's also, oh, no, it's a little bit more like maybe a hand or maybe a hand and a half. And the seeds inside, perhaps you recall this, when you open up a fresh pod and you slice it, which is often with a machete when people are harvesting them, the seeds are encased in kind of a white pulp, a white mucilage, and the seeds themselves don't look brown. They're kind of purplish. It takes drying, fermenting in the sun or under some heat, and then roasting before they start to turn brown, and they become sort of more familiar, smelling and looking like chocolate. Yes, please. Go ahead. No problem.
The shell of the pod is it waste? Meaning that all we work with is the seeds?
For our chocolate consumption of a beverage or a food, yes. But there are some people who will, they'll recycle the pulp. The pod, the peel, as it were, of the exterior, or they might actually. I don't know of anybody who eats it actually, but I would be surprised if they're just, throwing things away. The pulp itself can be used in a drink. The white pulp is used in a drink sometimes. And there are people in the United States who take the pulp and sell it as juice. It's not so easy to find, but you can find, if you look online, you'll find cocoa or cacao juice. It's just the pulp made into juice. It doesn't look like chocolate and it doesn't taste like chocolate, but it's sweet. Kind of. It's not milk, but it's not the milk that comes from it just becomes processed into a juice. Any other questions so far? Okay, let's move on. So quick reminder, when our early chocoholics were making their chocolate drinks, they were not taking a packet like a Swiss Miss or other packet and making a fast food, throwing it to hot water. They were using the beans had to be ground, but I'll show you that in a minute. First, you have to source the beans, right? So there were Jews in the colonial period in New York and Newport, Rhode Island, the Gomez family, for instance, and the Lopez family, who were in the chocolate business. But here is a shipping form from Nathan Simpson, who was also Jewish, also shipping cocoa beans. And notice, I hope you can see on the right-hand side in the square, the red square, it says cocoa at the top, and there's a Jewish star in the middle. So he's identifying on this, it's a printed form, but he's identifying there's some Jewish connection using that Magen David, and he's shipping from New York to London. Now, they're not growing in New York, but he's imported them to New York, and then he's shipping them off to London. So you're sourcing your beans. Then in the colonial period, this is the reconstruction of chocolate making from Williamsburg that I might have shown you a few years ago. This gentleman is roasting the beans over an open fire, which is how this had to happen. Now, it might have been with a different kind of utensil. It might have been a flatter piece of metal that you're roasting them on. He's got a pan there. In any case, he's making chocolate. First step, once you get your beans that have already been fermented, you have to roast them. Then they have to be shelled. So keep in mind how complicated this is before industrialization. This gentleman is showing you how they're shelled and sorted. This gentleman, this is actually an amazing, I do believe I showed you this several years ago, an amazing painting from the North Carolina Museum of Art where this man is what they call scraping chocolate, but basically grinding the chocolate on a stone. The stone has different names, a piedra, pierre, a matate, a stone, and look at how hard look at the position he's in. He's on his knees, grinding with a kind of grinder stone made from stone, the roller made from stone. On stone, there's a warming pan underneath to help the process move forward, and then the chocolate is formed once on sort of ground, formed into those tablets or balls that you see at the front of the painting. When those chocolate balls or tablets are stored, they're stored in old newspaper or used rags. Their hygiene was totally different from ours. And then they would be stored until people were ready to make their hot chocolate, their beverage. This is me trying it out. I'm not going to let you hear my groaning and griping about how hard it was to do this. I only did it once or for a couple minutes because it was really challenging to do that. In any case, if you were comfortable enough and you had access to this beautiful jade pot on the left-hand side of the slide. You would store those chocolate tablets or balls in a jade pot like that, but maybe, probably not, probably more like the newspapers and the rags. And you might use a specialized chocolate making pot like you see on the right-hand side when you're getting ready for your chocolate party with your chocolate cocoa and your chocolate beverage. On the right-hand side, you see this chocolate pot. You would take that tablet, you would grate it, you would maybe spice it, you would add water, you would heat it up and stir it. You see the stick sticking out of the top of that pot. You would stir that by hand to mix the water with the chocolate. Here's Colonial Williamsburg, a pantry, where you see a lot of beautiful porcelain and also a chocolate pot, specialized pot for making your chocolate. A typical family might have kept on hand if they were consuming chocolate, which many colonial families were, not just Jews. Many families were drinking chocolate for breakfast or drinking chocolate for dinner. That might have been their only food at that breakfast or their only intake at supper, but they would be using these chocolate pots. They might have had in hand 25 to 50 pounds of cocoa beans in order to sustain them for maybe a month or so in their chocolate drinking. Here's a photo of my friend Luis in Oaxaca on the left-hand side stirring his chocolate in his regular old soup pot, but it has been ground and it has been formed into the tablets or squares. And then you see the stirrer. You see a better shot of the stirrer. I probably showed you that before too. Here's a shot from the book, one of the centerpieces of the book, that shows Joshua and his family preparing chocolate. He's grinding it. Somebody's sorting the beans. Somebody's cooking them or roasting them over the fire. So that is a portrayal in the book of authentic chocolate making from the colonial period. If you were lucky, you had a beautiful Delft cup like this one, which was found in the Hudson Valley for drinking your hot chocolate. Museum curators identify this as a chocolate cup. It has two handles. It's really beautiful. I can just imagine how wonderful it would be to drink my chocolate out of a cup like that. We have recipes from that period of time for making chocolate. Here's one of them, and here's another one, which includes in this recipe, there's a lot that went into those. Look at all the ingredients. Lots of spices, lots of sugar, and ambergris, or musk, animal secretions that are used for perfumes, and secretions from sperm whale also used in perfume making. If you try that one, let me know. I'm never going to try that one. In the book, in the Boston Chocolate Party, there is a recipe for colonial-style hot chocolate and also for benuelos because they're Sephardim celebrating Hanukkah. They are not eating latkes at Hanukkah. I know this could surprise some of you, maybe not Judy because she's a food expert, but they're eating benuelos, which are basically fried dough. Very simple to make, actually, and quite delicious. And so there's a recipe for the benuelos in the Boston Chocolate Party book. So some of us, when we think about colonial period chocolate, or we think about American heritage chocolate, we might think about Baker's Chocolate, Massachusetts company, longtime company, but many of the Jewish endeavors in chocolate making actually precede Baker's, even though Baker's claims to be America's oldest chocolate company, Baker's Chocolate product from 1780, but there were actually Jews in that period of time, since 1701 or 1702, who had some role in the chocolate making business. So here's a list of Jews who were retailing chocolate prior to Baker's, 1752, 1760, 1761. They had little shops, maybe dry goods shops, but they were retailing chocolate prior to Baker's. And then here we have Sephardi estate inventories. So what was left in there, I didn't include every single item in their inventory. I just pulled out the chocolate-related things. 1708, 1709, 1725, they have chocolate pots, they have chocolate stones. They have hundreds of pounds of cocoa beans. So these Jews, these Sephardim in the colonial period, you see New York, New York, New York, New York, and then Aaron Lopez, Newport. they're in some aspect of either personal consumption of chocolate or the chocolate business, retail, manufacture, trade. Now, I just conclude this because I'm a rabbi, I suppose, and I relate to something about this document that was published in the Boston Evening Post in 1747 resonated for me. And maybe it resonates for you too, given inflation and what we were just talking about with somebody about price of eggs, right? And so here is a minister who wrote to the a letter to the Boston Evening Post. And he's complaining that his salary from his church has not kept pace with the cost of living. And one of the items that he's listing the costs that he has to deal with to support his family. And notice I marked in red the chocolate. He cannot afford. Chocolate is so kind of commonplace in the menus and the diet of colonial Jews and non-Jews that he's highlighting that he doesn't have enough money to buy, among other things, the chocolate that he's used to buying. So he's sort of publicizing, which most of our colleagues would not do these days, to the big world, how poorly his congregation is treating him. All right. Anyway, we could come back to that if you're interested, but we don't need to, actually. So two Sephardi families from the colonial period, I mentioned earlier, Aaron Lopez and we'll come to Gomez in a minute, but maybe we'll just stay with Lopez for the sake of time today. So Aaron Lopez was a prominent trader of the 18th century. He was born in 1731. He was born in Portugal. He chose to leave Portugal to live a freer Jewish life in Newport. He had family already living in Newport. That's why he decided to go to Newport, Rhode Island. By the time of the American Revolution, he had huge financial interests in almost 30 of the 100 sailing vessels from Newport, and at one time he was the highest taxpayer, the richest person in Newport altogether. So there's a number of documents from his, he left behind like many account books that the Newport Historical Society has, and I looked at a number of them. And you can see in this slide, I'm not sure you can read it, because I don't have my glasses on, so I can't read it, but maybe you can see it. That red arrow is pointing to indicate that Aaron Lopez paid a Negro, Negro we know is not an acceptable term to use these days, but that was the colonial period term. He was paying other people to grind chocolate for him, including this individual, Prince Updike. There are several examples of him paying people in the community to grind chocolate for him because, as you could see, it was pretty laborious and time-consuming. Here's another example. Here he's paying Cornelius Casey to grind chocolate for him. Here's another interesting aspect of Aaron Lopez's life and his chocolate business. He was responsible on behalf of the Jewish community for giving tzedakah, but basically foodstuffs to people who were, we see a hand on the slide. Oh, you're showing it. You're making it bigger. Thank you. Thank you. That's good. So follow the red arrow, and you might be able to see that it says tzedakah. Tzedakah. So he's giving out, and what he's giving out is foodstuffs, not a monetary allotment, but he's giving out foodstuffs, including chocolate. Chocolate, very reasonably priced in the colonial period, very accessible, and very available for people to consume. And here is the last slide I'll show you from Aaron Lopez, which is from his documents about Passover. So perhaps you can see the arrow again, and it indicates that he has paid, in this case, another Sephardi individual, Joseph Pinto, to grind chocolate for him for Pesach. The first connection I found in any of the documents that I saw of a connection between Jews and chocolate, at least this far back. So in New York, the Gomez family was also very involved in chocolate. I think I probably showed you last time we were together that Rebecca Gomez is a member of the Gomez family in New York. She's the only Jewish woman I know of who was in the chocolate business, but she's part of a Gomez family 5 individuals and 2 generations of the family who were in the chocolate business, and she was manufacturing it. I'm not going to tell you that she was actually grinding it herself, but she has her manufactory, and she has it for sale, and she's advising people that it's fine quality chocolate. Now let's sort of expand out a little bit from these Jewish stories in the colonial period to go back to our question. So what was Alexander Hamilton drinking, and what was colonial period chocolate really about? And I can tell you that a lot of Alexander Hamilton's compatriots or other founders of our country were in the chocolate business, and this is on the Chocolate Trail, the adult book. So John and Abigail Adams loved drinking chocolate. They especially enjoyed it when they traveled to Spain. Adams said, "I have never met with few things more remarkable than the chocolate, which is the finest I ever saw," recording in his diary in Spain in 1779. He breakfasted on Spanish chocolate, which he very much enjoyed. So that's a little bit related to the Adams story. And this is called a Mansarina. There's a lot of story about Mansarinas, but look at how beautiful it is. It's designed for chocolate drinking, like that 2-handled cup before, but this is a different chocolate cup tradition. And it's got the plate attached to the cup so that, goodness, you don't want to spill if you're going to spill your chocolate while you're drinking it, you should spill it on the cup and not on your clothes. So hopefully, because, it was before stain remover, and much easier to get it on the plate than on your clothes. So John Adams observed in his diary that ladies drink chocolate from these kinds of cups. Each lady took a cup of hot chocolate, drank it, and then cakes and bread and butter were served. So they were there's a number of mentions in Abigail's diary and John's diaries about their chocolate consumption. Sorry, did I skip something? Oh, yes, no, sorry. Was there a question? Sorry. Yes, wait a second. So, yes, I skipped George Washington, thank you. No, I didn't skip it. You got it. I skipped it here, sorry. We're juggling 2 different devices, whatever. Yes, George Washington also was a chocolate aficionado, and Martha, too. So they had this collection of porcelain that was gifted to them. It's a whole set of, cups and bowls and coffee cups and so on, but this is their chocolate cup from that collection, which is at Mount Vernon, a Sèvres porcelain collection. And Washington regularly purchased chocolate for his family. When they had company at Mount Vernon, they served chocolate along with coffee and tea at breakfast time. So and there are any number of examples of their usages of chocolate and gifting chocolate to family members. Here we go to Thomas Jefferson, Hamilton's rival. But Jefferson was also a chocolate fan. He enjoyed it when he was in France. Not only did he purchase chocolate in 1775, but at one point he was so enamored with this classical style, whatever, I don't really know, but he had a chocolate pot made according to this old ancient classical style. And that's kind of weird kind of pot, in my estimation, but it serves the purpose. It would hold the chocolate. You could pour it, sort of like a gravy bowl, I guess. Mark, if you could go down to the slide that shows the chocolate pots. That's more typically the look of a chocolate pot from the colonial period. You see these in Europe as well. They could be silver, they could be not so elegant. But you see 2 examples here, and they always have a thing that flips open at the top so that you can put the stirrer inside to mix your chocolate with your water and your spices and mix them by hand. So let's just go to Alexander Hamilton. So we don't have direct evidence. Well, we have direct evidence of Washington, and we have direct evidence of Jefferson, and we have direct evidence of the Adamses consuming, enjoying, speaking about chocolate in their records. We don't have direct evidence about Alexander Hamilton. And the colonial people were drinking lots of things. But we do have his doppelganger. So Alexander Hamilton had a, not relative, but an individual who was a doctor named Alexander Hamilton, who kept a diary as he traveled throughout the colonial area. And he recorded his travels through Delaware, Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and mentions chocolate several times. He drank chocolate, he gifted chocolate, he had a chocolate something going on. But that's our Alexander Hamilton's doppelganger. We can only speculate, I'm sorry to say, about Alexander. So next time you drink chocolate, which could be any minute now because I don't know if there's chocolate next door, I don't know, or you have a chocolate party, which I strongly encourage you to have again, because you have a good tradition going, right? Maybe you would even have a Hanukkah chocolate party. We proposed to people. I posted at my website ideas for families to have Boston chocolate parties in their own homes. Do this with your grandchildren or your children or your religious school, actually. So just keep in mind when you do that, or just keep in mind even if you don't do those things, that you're partaking, and you did today actually when you ate chocolate, partaking in colonial Jewish history and Jewish history altogether, and the role that Jews played in chocolate history in America. So why don't I stop here to take questions, and then I'll just finish up with the hope that Lador Vador, you all, from generation to generation, you enjoy your chocolate. Yes? No, they probably by the time people were living in the colonies, they were accessing some sugar, but early on, Mayans and Aztecs used honey to sweeten their chocolate, or other sweeteners. They didn't have stevia, though. Yes. 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 Oh, okay. So there you go. Yeah. Yes, please.
Chocolate by itself, cocoa by itself is not, is not sweet. So they would have had to doctor it in some way. When did milk enter, like for a hot chocolate, when did that enter the conversation?
Right. So the Swiss created powdered milk, and powdered milk lent itself to being mixed with chocolate. So it's a Swiss tradition, probably 19th century.
But prior to that, it was water.
Like Peters. I think Peters, and I'm blanking on the name of the other person.
Frosties.
They added,
No, I don't know.
not Nestle, but
No, Drosti. I mean,
no.
No.
But it'll come to
Something
me,
like that.
maybe. It's okay. But it's relatively late, milk getting added to chocolate. Not to say that colonial people might not have been adding, they added lots of, and earlier peoples were adding, in some cases, bread or wine or thickeners. And so maybe they were, just that we don't have a formal record of milk being added.
And then my last question has to do with its relation to coffee, meaning,
Yes.
was it as, coffee literally changed the world? I mean,
Yes.
if so, are they seen as cousins? Do they serve a totally different purpose?
It's a good question. So coffee, tea, and chocolate, the three what are called stimulant drinks,
Okay.
come to Europe and change European culture altogether. Chocolate gets to Europe first through Spain, through the Spaniards. Columbus was said in his fourth voyage to have one can't say discover, that wouldn't be accurate, because indigenous peoples in Central and South America were already consuming chocolate and the drink, mixed with peppers and chilies and other things to flavor it. So Columbus' fourth voyage, first European contact with chocolate, the Spanish imported chocolate before coffee was imported, before tea was imported. Chocolate, they all have caffeine in them, though chocolate has mostly theobromine, which is a little bit milder than caffeine, a little bit less of a boost. And what else can I tell you about that, except that I think that perhaps because coffee and tea are easier to make, and maybe became easier to access for some reason, and maybe because they also have more caffeine, sort of took over, and chocolate sort of fell by the wayside. But they all sort of in that same category. And maybe chocolate changed the world in a different way. We could discuss what that means. No, it was not. It was, no. If you, are you Googling maybe who added milk to chocolate? Oh, no. Why don't you try? Letterach is a contemporary company. Does anybody? Lynn, no. If you maybe just Google, if you're Googling already, who added milk to chocolate. Maybe we'll see who comes up. I'm just blanking on the name. Yes? That's good enough.
Were there any
fine.
medicinal uses?
Well, it's so interesting that you asked that question because there was a lot of, I don't know, ambivalence, suspicion, curiosity, appreciation, kind of a mix of responses by Europeans to New World foods. It wasn't just about chocolate, but it included chocolate because they were seeing, cocoa beans growing, but they were also learning about lots of other foods. Tomatoes, did somebody say? Pineapples, there's a long list, right, of things that they hadn't experienced before. So there are a lot of treatises written in the age of discovery, as it were, about is it healthy? Is it not healthy? How does it fit into the humors? And so on. So that's kind of the first level of is it or isn't it? And some people say yes, and some people say no. These days, if you're asking me about, is it healthy or is it not healthy? We see a lot of headlines, right? Or I used to anyway. Chocolate, it's going to keep you young. It's going to keep you from getting diabetes. It's going to keep you thin. It's going to keep your memory longer, lasting longer. It's like the perfect food, right? And some people call it a superfood. Some people categorize it as a superfood. I would just say, going back to the sugar question, it depends on which chocolate you're eating and the form that it's in, right? So how much sugar does your chocolate product have in it? How do you know how much sugar is in your chocolate product? Miriam just mentioned Lindt. And I don't want to single out. And by the way, I don't get any commissions from any chocolate companies, and I don't want to badmouth a particular chocolate company that you might adore and love. However, just generally, look at the list of ingredients on your chocolate, right? Sugar, if it's the first, as you know, is going to be the biggest, largest proportion of that product. If you don't want the sugar, then look for a product that has, or that much sugar. Look for a product that starts with cocoa mass, cocoa beans, chocolate, whatever it says. And then sugar should be sort of towards the end if you want a healthier product. But the healthiest version of chocolate, we might have discussed this a few years ago, I think might be just getting those beans that have been fermented and roasted, and eating them. You can get them in whole, and you can get them in little chunks and pieces called nibs, and throwing that on your food might be the best way. Some people say, oh, hot chocolate, cocoa powder that's not mixed with all those other processed things might be healthy. I'm not a dietitian, I'm not a nutritionist, I'm not a physician, so I'm not going to tell you that it really is healthy. I would just say be careful. Does that help? Yeah. Okay. No, because I disappointed you about you. Sorry? It doesn't cure cancer. No, it doesn't. At least not that we know of yet. Yes.
Not to spoil the afternoon.
Oh.
But have you, or has anybody else read the latest issue of Consumer Reports?
Yes.
Special on chocolate,
Yes.
especially
Yes.
gourmet dark chocolates?
Yes, well, this is important in terms of the health question also. So the cadmium-lead numbers are pretty high in some chocolates from some companies and some of their lines. It's not every single dark chocolate. There are lists online that you can find, so you can double check what you're buying is not one of those high lead, high cadmium content chocolates. And it didn't spoil the afternoon for me, for sure, because I know there's a lot of other chocolate out there. It's really okay. But thank you for mentioning it is part of what's going on in the chocolate world these days. Judy. Yeah, that's so interesting. I think it goes back a little bit to this, experience of chocolate, a new food. Maybe it's associated with the custom of drinking it for breakfast, and it's what people would drink like after a night of whatever, your word. I actually, how did it become associated with Valentine's Day? And so maybe that's related to the question. Cadbury, a British company, Cadbury Rise Frown Trees, they're Quaker companies. I talk about this in the book because I talk about religions, Jews and chocolate, and also Quakers and chocolate and Catholics and chocolate. Catholics, by the way, having been a lot more ambivalent about their chocolate consumption than Jews. I don't know why, but I couldn't find any evidence of Jewish ambivalence about chocolate whatsoever. But there's a lot of, among Catholics, there's, obviously, a lot of people give it up at Lent, but there was also a question of, can it break the fast? Can it be drunk during the fast? Can it not be drunk during the fast? Can you drink it during Mass? Or they saw it as related to the pagan indigenous peoples in Central and South America that they wanted to convert to Catholicism. So there was this real tension about they use chocolate in their pagan customs, therefore chocolate cannot be part of our consumption. So anyway, Quaker companies, Cadbury Roundtree Fries. They have there's a whole beautiful story about those Quaker companies. They were also a minority people. They were also kept out of certain professions and certain areas of work. They took advantage, these particular companies took advantage of the Industrial Revolution, the access to railroad transportation to create these amazing companies, and they were also very worker friendly. They created, like Hershey modeled his Hershey, Pennsylvania town for workers after those Quaker companies. But Cadbury being one of them, and being a wise or maybe savvy business person, there's a lot more to these stories, these company stories, but he somehow came to this idea that he should package chocolates for Valentine's Day, and perhaps Valentine's Day has its layering of love and the cherubs and whatever, so maybe that explains it. Any other questions? Yes. No, I think for a lot of these people it was an everyday thing. It was really relatively inexpensive. The taxes on it, it was accessible because you just import it from South America or Central America or via the Caribbean maybe. And much more so than in Europe. But even in Europe, they were drinking it for breakfast and supper. But definitely it was part of the custom of Central and Southern folks, South American folks, a breakfast and supper. Part of their ritual, also their religious rituals, but it was so inexpensive that Aaron Lopez was giving it out for, poor people, tzedakah, and it was given as rations to soldiers and to prisoners. So it was really available, inexpensive, and popular. As a powder? No, as that ground, liquid, solidified, as we saw in that earlier, the slide's still up? From the pod, like this, after this process. Yeah, after this process, like this. It wasn't, powder isn't possible until the industrial period, and until Van Houten in Holland is able to figure out a way to separate. Oh, thank you. Sorry. Thank you, Mark. I forgot that I'm not manipulating the slides. Thank you. Sorry? Yeah, but it just depends on how you form it. You can form it into squares, you can form it into balls, you can form it into tablets, ovals, whatever you want. It's just whatever you do with your kind of, it's a bit of a liquid, but a thick liquid, and a paste, thank you, and then it solidifies a little bit as it cools. Yes, and then we'll finish, I think. Yes? 3. Yes, absolutely, like your chocolate bar lasts for a long time. Correct. Yes. Yes. Yes, good point. Absolutely. So it could be available. It would be available. You didn't have to harvest it. You didn't have to, once you did this, which is already not that easy. But once you do that, you're not waiting on a harvest. You're not waiting on the weather. You're not waiting on your chickens to lay or the cows to be healthy. You've got it. And then in the back, please. Good point.
You
I
were
like that.
talking about that the 3, coffee, tea,
Yes.
chocolate, those were the staple drinks.
Yes.
In your research, when did you start reading about chocolate being used in baking and cooking and recipes? Because we
Yeah.
don't use tea and
Oh,
coffee
true.
in the same way, but chocolate
Yeah.
is
How
baked
did they-
and cooked in everything.
How did people transition from drinking it to eating it and baking with it? I have to think about it a little bit. It's a good question. I mean, how it happened, we know it happened. But yes.
Changes the
Yes.
kashrut of everything, because then it wouldn't be a
Well, milk
parve thing.
changes it.
Right,
Until then, it's
because
parve and
Right, so,
yeah.
but I was curious about when people thought about using it in baking and cooking.
Yeah, I mean, we know that there are recipes in early colonial period recipe books for chocolate puddings, which are basically cakes, and chocolate ice cream. Dolly Madison's cookbook has a chocolate ice cream. So at some point, somebody's figuring, I don't know, can't pinpoint who. I actually have evidence even earlier, 16th century England, where people were making chocolate cakes or cookies. They didn't call them cookies, biscuits maybe. So, but how that happened, I don't know. But maybe it is related to, if you take a nibble of that chocolate tablet that you're seeing up there, it doesn't taste bad. And maybe you just, let's see what happens if I throw it in my in my challah. Good question. I wish I knew. I wish I could, parse that out for you. Yeah. Yes.
How and when did they figure out how to make chocolate solid like chocolate bars?
So this is solid, but the industrial period with mechanization and equipment enabled the bars that we know of today, the texture that we know of today. That would be that chocolate bar. I'm looking back there because I can see the slide, but that would be kind of gritty. Have you ever come across a chocolate that maybe you find at health food stores, maybe at Whole Foods, maybe I don't know where else, named Taza? Anybody seen it? So Taza chocolate is made in a company in Somerville, I always say Springfield, and Mark always corrects. Somerville, Massachusetts. It's a suburb of Boston. And it's a really great company for lots of reasons. But if you buy it, and they make their chocolate in a very kind of South American, Central American, Mexican style. They're not doing it quite this primitively on a stone, but they're using stones to grind. They're grinding it between stones, which is somewhat similar to what you would see in Mexico today. And the result is kind of gritty. It's intended for a drinking chocolate, but you can still eat it. It's just grittier. And mechanization makes it possible to refine the grit out and soften or eliminate the sugar granules, so it's all mixed together. Okay? All right. Well, I think my guess is there's still more chocolate over there. There are some books left in the other room if you'd like to. I'm selling them, almost giving them away. I'm selling them for my author price. And I want to thank you for being such a great audience. Thank you for being here. Thank you to Judy for organizing that amazing event. And thank you to Miriam for the invitation. Oh, there's a contest coming. And thank you all very much.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. You got it.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Prince. That was so much fun. And I just want to tell you, I went to Kauai the one time I've been in Hawaii. We went on a chocolate tour. It was a walking tour. And at the very end, we got to taste 20 different samples of chocolate. You don't realize how many different flavors and that's not what it's called, though. It's the different profiles of chocolate, from very hickory to sweet. And I bought some nibs, and they're not very tasty, I will tell you. It's like eating tree bark. It's not. I think I threw them out when I retired. But I want to thank all of you for being here today and for participating, those of you who will take home some chocolate with you because you sampled it, and those of you who participated in creating some of our chocolate extravaganza. We do have winners. We have first, second, and third prizes for both appearance and taste. And so the first place winner of our appearance category is Miss Sydney Applebaum. Where are you? Yay. Our second youngest participant, because Jacob is our youngest participant, and our oldest participant is a little bit older. Sydney made a Black Forest tart with cherries on the top. And so that was really yummy. I did taste that. Second prize, no relation, but Terry Applebaum won that. And I know she made truffles. Truffles. Those were those beautiful. And they were coated in coarse sugar, right? Sprinkles. Okay. Colored crystallized sprinkles. You thought they were salt. Not salt. And third prize, and we'll have to get that to her, is Batya Shwed for appearance. And for taste, first prize goes to Ann Livitz. Yes. There you go. Congratulations. Oh, there was something with coconut. Drop Dead. Drop Dead cookies. They had coconut on top? Yes. Second prize goes to Ms. Judy Kansiger. Oh, wait, yes.
I made the cheesecake that Victoria Levin made last year. She won first prize.
There you go. And third prize goes to Mr. Jacob Weitzman. There you go, sir. Congratulations. So thank you again to all of you. Thanks to Susan Schultz for picking up our lunch from the restaurant today. I couldn't have done it without all of you. And thank you, Judy, for being my right shoulder to lean on. It was really helpful. And, maybe we'll have a chocolate Seder. You never know. All right. Have a great Shabbat, everybody. Hope to see you next Shabbos, of course.